Welcome to the March meeting of the Richmond Area Planning Committee. I am David Webster, Chairman of the committee. The officers are Fiona Hunter and Lynn Timmins, who are planning officers, Kate Lavelle, Legal Services, and Stephen Loach and Christian Brennan, who are from Democratic Services. Please may I respectfully request you switch any mobile phones or devices onto mute. Please also be advised that the meeting is being recorded may be recorded by a member of the general public, and we may have a number of press and public who are observing the proceedings via Teams. There will be a statement from the Midland Town Council read by the clerk today. So we now move. Public speaking will take place on the public speaking chair. You have 5 minutes to speak, after which 30 seconds from the end of your 5 minutes you'll be given an award. The time is nearly up. No other participation is allowed in the meeting. And please do not circulate any documents or photographs because it won't be considered today. Please do not communicate with councillors or passengers during the meeting. Item 2 is to agree the minutes held on the 15th of June, 15th of January, and a true and correct record. All in favour?
I wasn't there.
Yeah,
I can't say. I just abstained.
right. So that's agreed. Declarations of interest. All members are invited to declare at this point any interests, including the nature of those interests, or lobbying in respect of any items appearing on the agenda. None. Go on to item 4, which is outline plan and permission for 55 residential dwellings at Midland. The first officer to give the presentation is Fiona Hunter, who will then be followed by Lynn Timmins.
Good morning, everyone. So as you may recall, you've previously seen this application the 12th of December 2024, and it's an outline application with all matters reserved except for access up to 55 dwellings at Lander, Alcestas Road, Middleham, North Yorkshire. At the December meeting, the committee voted to resolve to be minded to grant approval subject to conditions in section 106. The minded to grant was in respect of the forthcoming National Planning Policy Framework, which might have some changes in it, and indeed it did. However, the reason we're coming back to committee is not the revised NPPF, as matters delegated to officers to review it and then speak to the chair and proceed if appropriate. In this case, unfortunately, there was an error in the report advising there would be an off-site public open space contribution. This isn't correct, it's all going to be on-site. And therefore, we're bringing the application back to committee so that you can make a resolution, bearing in mind that the Section 106 heads of terms are different than what you voted on. So this site is adjacent to the development of Middleham, which is a primary service village, which the minimum housing target has not yet been met. The site is considered a sustainable location for the quantum of housing proposed in relation to the settlement character, services and facilities. Since the December committee resolution, the December 2024 NPPF was published together with a new standard methodology for 5-year land housing supply requirements. This has changed the methodology and has resulted in the Richmond Shire adopted development plan area going from having a 5-year land housing supply, indeed in excess of, and this has changed us to having only a 2.8-year land housing supply. As such, this triggers what used to be referred to as the tilted balance, which is paragraph 11D currently of the NPPF, where housing is applicable, such as this one. and this is the presumption in favour of sustainable development. For this application, officers and the planning committee considered the principle of development was already acceptable, and the change in 5-year land housing supply adds positive weight in favour of the application. The principle of development is considered acceptable and complies with policies SP2, SP4, CP3 and CP4, together with paragraphs 7 and 11 of the NPPF. I'm going to pass over to my colleague Liam for the rest of the presentation.
The site is located to the west of Midland Town Centre, as you can see on the red outline. It is bounded by development built form to the east and south of the development. North is the Labour Road, and to the west, open farmland, hedges, and dry stone walls. The access will be taken off Labour Road into the site. And the gradient of the land slopes from south to north on a gentle slope. The site is outside of the development limits of Midland. Is also the site access road to the northwest portion is located within the conservation area, but the site itself is located outside of it, but adjacent to. And the site is located in flood zone 1, but there is groundwater drainage issues, but they have been resolved by the local flood authority, subject to conditions. The lower part of the site is within flood zone 3, which is on the access road to Labour Road. But that does not affect the actual site itself. And the site is visible from the north from Harmby. Limited impact upon the visual appearance of the national park can't be seen really. And in terms of the heritage impact, the site will not be seen from the scheduled monuments in the town centre, and the nearest list builds of St Alfreda's Church as highlighted on the map. Site was previously granted planning permission in 2021 for 35 dwellings. In front of us now is an illustrative master plan which shows that the potential development is easily accommodated on this site. And given the fact that the 5-year housing land supply thought the balance is in the favour, it would be acceptable home development on this site. Drainage to the pond, attenuation basins, drainage. There's floor side access running north to south. The road speed will be dropped at this point on a traffic order, subject to different process. But obviously the 30 mile an hour zone, the 60 mile an hour road speed will be moved further to the west to allow for the access road to be within the 30 mile an hour zone. Obviously that accounts for any issue that the local highway authority had on this plan, which would now be resolved subject to this traffic order. Photographs of the site looking north and east across the valley. Looking north and then looking south up the site towards the built form at the top of the hill, which would be single story dwellings would be at the top of the site, 2-story dwellings towards the lower part of the site. There's a public right of way running across the southern part of the boundary, east to west or west to east. There's another photograph looking east across the site to give you an indication of the site. The proposed access road next to the properties, Pedder Road, Labour Road. Flood map showing that the site is located outside of the flood zone. But obviously the access road itself, Labour Road, is within the flood risk area. There's what flood risk. And then if I want flood risk, there is a portion of the site that is subject, and then obviously you, like I said before, you can see the views across the valley towards the site, you can see it. If you look carefully, where if you want to put a marker, it's roughly where the little form the housing site will be. Obviously, it's just a natural expansion of Midland itself, not isolated in any sense of the word. And obviously, there's more useful information within the site. Also, there's going to be open access through the site to the views of the church tower, which will obviously only be visible in the winter. These photographs were taken in autumn last year, autumn winter season. Obviously, during the summer, the trees got their leaves on, you'll not see the church tower. Conservation area is adjacent to the site, but not the site is not within it, as I previously stated.
And then just with the recommendation.
And obviously, the recommendation is to grant it this time, subject to 106. And obviously, that was for open space provision and also for affordable housing. In terms of affordable housing, there will be 17 units on the site. There will be. Sorry, 2 seconds, we apologise. There'll be 9 affordable rent units on the site, 5 first homes on the site, and 3 discount market homes on the site. So a total of 17 affordable homes will be provided on the site by the developers.
So as per December, all matters have been found to be by officers acceptable. The public open space and the play provision is still considered acceptable. It will just all be provided on site. That public right of way, so people off site could come onto the site and enjoy it as well. And the recommendation is to grant subject to section 106 and conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. The first speaker, the only speaker, is Mr. Graham Scotchburn Snell.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Scotchburn Snell. I'm speaking as an objector. Notwithstanding the visual impact the proposed development will have on Midland and how it sits in the wider landscape of
Mr. Snell, could you just pull the microphone a little bit closer to you?
Can I start again? And
Yes.
Thank you. Notwithstanding the visual impact the proposed development will have on Midland on how it sits in the wider landscape of Wensdale and the detrimental impact it will have on the prominent historic assets, I do not consider the site suitable for development until the following questions are addressed and satisfactorily resolved. Access and routeways. Most public amenities are located in Leyburn. The question: given the requirement to promote sustainable access, will the road to Leyburn be improved to provide a footpath and cycleway, as the road and bridge are currently dangerous for pedestrians and cyclists? If not, the site is not suitable for development until such improvements are implemented. Please note, in these circumstances, it's appropriate that the developer is asked to make a financial contribution to the improvement works. Utilities. Some residences have experienced untreated sewage spills into their gardens, and Yorkshire Water have recently discharged untreated sewage into the River Yore. The question: do the existing utilities have sufficient capacity to accommodate the needs of 55 new dwellings? It is noted that Yorkshire Water did not respond to the Planning Department's request for input on this subject. Until such times that it can be confirmed that utility systems have sufficient capacity, or the developer undertakes to cover the cost of upgrades to the site is unsuitable for development. Please note, it is understood that Midland Bridge has no further capacity for handling services across the river. Affordable occupancy. The likelihood is that the dwellings categorised as affordable will be financially beyond the reach of the element of the local community requiring accommodation. Question: has a study been undertaken to assess the current actual local need, and does the proposed development make a substantial contribution to meeting this requirement? If not, the site should be deemed unsuitable for development until agreement is reached on this subject. Type of project. This is a speculative development driven by a profit motive, and it's appropriate that development makes a significant contribution to the existing community and area. The question: has the contribution originally proposed been updated to take into consideration current building costs and needs? If not, the site should not be considered for such a sizable development. Note, a community facility requiring for financial support is currently provided by the Key Centre. Housing demand. Midland is a satellite community to Leyburn. Leyburn and the surrounding area is already hosting other new housing developments. Question: has the local demand for new dwellings been already met by those already approved, and the demand be such that it warrants causing detrimental visual impact to historic elements in the Dale and in the area and the Dale as a whole? If this is the case, the site should not be considered suitable for development at this time. As a final point, I find it interesting that both the applicant and the planning department have chosen to use a photograph of Midland taken from Harmby to illustrate the site's location and the impact on its surroundings and where the site is mostly obscured, rather than Leyburn and the approach from this direction, where the site can be seen sitting dominantly in the landscape. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scotchman Snell. And I'll call upon the clerk to read a statement from Midland Town Council.
Thanks, Chair. Midland Town Council's response to this altered application is consistent with their previous response. 1. They are disappointed to see the reduction from 40% to 31% in the provision of affordable to rent and discounted to buy and shared ownership properties. We understand the greatly increased costs of construction, materials, trades and labour that currently exist, but the development could go further in helping multi-generational local families to stay closer to their supporting older and younger relations. This is an essential part of our social cohesion and sustainable community support. It is also crucial to enable the continuation and development of local employment through the racehorse training industry, its supply chain, the hospitality, retail and agricultural businesses, all of which are constrained by recruitment problems that are founded in the lack of affordable to buy or to rent housing. Mitigation. In allowing the lower 5 number of affordable homes to rent, a higher number of discounted for sale and shared ownership homes should be required, which would be less financially onerous on the developer whilst better meeting local needs. 2. The low moor and lands above this area are known for rapid water runoff when wet weather persists over a number of days. The end houses on Leyburn Road have recently flooded from this cause. More extreme weather is becoming the norm and must be fully catered for both now and for the future. Leyburn Road, west of the proposed access, is already known to flood and become impassable in these conditions. Mitigation. That the proposed surface water drainage with a balancing of leach storage pond and controlled release and the foul water capacities must meet or exceed the maximum potential of one 250th year event as a minimum. 3. To enable a safe turning into and out of the access road from Leyburn Road without taking additional common land, e.g. for a right turn lane. Mitigation. Extend the existing 30-mile-an-hour speed limit threshold to a point to the west of the bend, west of the access point. 4. Plans denote potential single-storey dwellings to the southern edge of the site. This row of homes is closest and on the nearest to the level access through the community centre, town centre shops and facilities and the bus stop, all of which are vital to enable accessibility to services for less mobile residents. Mitigation. Conditioning that the southernmost row of dwellings be fully accessible single-storey units for rent or purchase with fully accessible access point and level surfacing onto Sental Kelders and the footpath through to Park Lane. 5. Concerns expressed by residents, especially those living close to the proposed development site, about the potential noise and disruption from construction works and traffic. For construction of 55 homes in a rural small town setting, this is significant, albeit temporary impact. Mitigation. conditioning of strictly limited working hours that will entirely preclude works after 12:30 p.m. on Saturdays and no works at all on Sundays and public holidays. Finally, number 6, that the well-used public footpath from the east to west along the southern edge of the site be preserved and improved to enable full and continuing access. Mitigation: the installation of an improved footpath service surface would enable greater access, especially by those less mobile. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Loach. You all have received the update reports circulated via email, and there are copies available for your requirements. So it's down to the committee now. Councillor Thompson.
Not sure if that's working.
The mic's on.
I'm capable of shouting, but
If you press and hold, it should come on. Councillor Thompson.
There's one thing.
Hello?
Yeah, this one.
Hello.
It was making a funny noise earlier, so I don't know.
thanks, Alan. Sucks. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just a couple of questions for the officers. The statement that Steve Loach read out from Middleham Town Council questioned why there was a decrease from 40% to 31%. I'll call them affordable housing, but it was a mixture. But it was, could one of the officers, why is this being sort of accepted, as it were?
So the reason this application has been referred to committee was specifically for this point, that it doesn't provide the policy level 40% affordable housing, and instead it's just, I think it's 31%. And the reason for that is the National Planning Policy Framework says that council should do a review of their local plan every 5 years. This local plan was adopted in 2014, and at this point we should have done 2 reviews of the plan to check it was still up to date, fit for purpose, and whether any changes were needed. And that means that we just don't know if 40% is viable, if it will facilitate sustainable development at the speed we need. And officers considered 30% to be a meaningful and acceptable contribution, but it's very much for members to consider today and decide if they agree. And the members who voted in December did agree. I appreciate this is a fresh resolution for you to consider, and I'll just find the paragraph numbers. So it starts at paragraph 10.29 and the assessment. So yes, until we've done a 5-year review, or we have a new evidence base as part of the emerging plan, I feel like we're on the back foot in terms of being able to say that 40% is definitely viable and achievable in Richmond Shire, whereas 30% is highly likely to be.
Members. Councillor Sedgwick.
Okay, thank you. Speaking as the divisional member then now for Midland, I've mixed thoughts on this one. If I start with the positives, no, I'll start with the negatives. The negatives, yes, I am concerned about the sewage, and they have recently had a problem with the sewage with the pipes at the bottom. Oops, at the bottom of that hill, the pipes are only like this big, and they really need to be bigger to cope with the existing sewage, let alone the new sewage that's going to be coming in. So I'd like some confirmation that they are going to take this into account. They're not going to set up a whole new drainage system all going into small pipes. I'm sure they wouldn't do that, but that is the concern that I have and has been expressed to me. It is in the flood zone, but not to any of the houses there. I've just heard that one or two of the houses at the end have been flooded. I wasn't aware of that. I didn't realise that, and that will probably be through passing water rather than the river rising. I would have said. So I personally don't see that one as, with it not being in the conservation area as well, that is also a positive point for building these houses. I'm not actually bothered about the amount of, I don't mean that in a glib way, because yes, obviously the more affordable houses built, the better. But I'm looking at 31% rather than we haven't got the others. I think it is good. Somebody, I think the parish council said about multi-generational. The questions that I've had asked are from people saying, my son wants a house. You know, can you help me get an affordable house? Where will it be? How much will they be? And so there is the multi-generational aspect within Midland. It's not like Laban's more elderly people. Midland isn't. Midland's got a better cross section of families and the ages. The road and footpath, that was referred to. Yes, it would be ideal. It would be lovely. But we've been waiting years and years for the one from Bellaby, and we've actually got the fields and everything that we need. In the area, in the rural dales, we are very unlikely to get footpaths, cycle paths, what we would like. We've got to go with what we've got at the moment. You know, I do see the fact that the cycle path and footpath is on the wish list, but I don't see it as a consideration because within the whole division, within the whole area, we're unlikely to have them. Excuse me. The road speed, I'm really glad that's been moved, but I am really glad it's been moved. It's a consideration for the exit, and I am concerned about Yorkshire Water silence. I've noticed that they haven't given any comments. Is that normal? Would that be normal for them just not to comment on it? Or do you think they're not commenting on it because it could be, well, yes, we recently have had a sewage spill, and that was caused by a lot of rainfall, bringing up the whole thing and spewing it out. It does happen. So I am concerned about Yorkshire Water not passing any comments on. And I think the fact that that Midland hasn't met its minimum housing target yet, this is a good way forward. And I know they've got plans afoot for a variety of other things, but this is a good start. So, you know, that's my views and thoughts on it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Next question.
Is it working now? Just a couple. Just the first question to clarify my mind is quite right. So in 2021, when this went to Richmond District Council, it had 40% affordable housing. Is that correct? And then again, it had 40% in December 24 when we looked at it.
So yes, the previous scheme that was approved and that put on the screen, the approved in 2021 had 40% affordable, but when we considered it in December, it had 30%, and that's the reason why it went to committee and the non-facility compliance.
I mean, I've been involved in all three applications actually, and I will make a first comment. If they'd got on with it in 2019 instead of waiting, they wouldn't be in this position with developers. So this is partly of the result of developers not cracking on with it. So that's where we are today. It's very disappointing. I think I said this last time that we haven't got 40%, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it every time I do it. 40% is there for a reason, and it was it's to achieve it. It might be a little bit ambitious, or they might think it's ambitious. I don't think it is, and I'm a bit disappointed I don't see any social and or council houses in there, because that would make a real difference to Midland. Are they really affordable? Well, by the definition, yes, they are, and there is a guidance on affordable. And please correct me, it's 20% below the rate that the other house. Is that correct? Yeah. So that's a shame, and I agree. I don't think they're affordable, but that's what into the objectives. That's what the definition is, and that's what we're left with. There's some really good things as well, and really good to see some single bed dwellings for the race. There is some jockeys around there and that was a need. It's just a shame they couldn't have put another 2 1-bedroom houses and squeezed them in there to make this viable and be good enough for me to wholehearted. I'm not completely decided yet, and I'm just going to see what the rest of the council said. But it's just a real shame this is not there, the 40%, and I'll keep saying that until either we'll have a review of our housing. And I think that we've just found out today we need to get on with the review of that. I know we're in a difficult influx going from the Richmondshire into North Yorkshire, and we're doing it. It's going to take a while before we get there, but let's see what happens from there. And the other thing that has happened now is that we have been given new targets by national government. That's made a massive difference. So we've got a different balance. That's got a balance now to what we're thinking. We've got to try and make these houses. And the final point, I can't say enough. It's just a shame we didn't have any social housing there in the Midland. But thank you for that.
Councillor Hugo.
I'm going red. Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Just to continue on the affordable housing theme, I was at strategic planning on Tuesday. We had a similar item to reduce the number. That was to 35%. So here we are sitting at 31. I think Councillor Foster said that 40% is there for a reason. I think the reason is, Councillor Foster, is it's the starting point for where developers want to negotiate down. And I have residents, even as in Stokesley, will be sending me messages after today. Oh, I see you've let them get away with it again. There is concern out there from residents about this. Us constantly going off this figure of 40%. So I don't know where I am with it, but apart from being disappointed that we are sitting at 31, I think that's an extra 5 houses we could have, affordable houses we could have had if my maths are correct, if this had been at 40%. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we have seen this application before, and we last time we saw it, we managed to grant it with these same numbers. Just waiting really clarification on planning policy overall. There's been concerns raised on a number of things by the parish council, such as the outfall rate from drainage, foul water plans, construction management schemes. I can see they're all within the documentation today, and they will go forward for further discussion with the developers. It's one of those catch-22 whereby for the survival of Middleham, it probably needs that growth. And yes, the proximity to Leyburn, you could argue, well, Leyburn should have it. Well, does that mean that you're giving up on the future of Middleham going forward and developing? So I'd like to propose we grant the scheme as presented today.
Councillor Thompson.
This time. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've all heard the expression NIMBY, and it comes up frequently, but having listened carefully to what the town council had to say, I got the impression that they weren't really opposed to the scheme, but the 40% of all, I'll call it affordable, 40% affordable housing is a key matter. And I agree with what's been said by Kevin Foster and down the line. We should stick to this 40% because otherwise we're just going to get a barrage of emails saying you've just let them off the hook to do what they want again. So I therefore propose that we are mandated to grant the scheme, but with the 40% affordable housing in. Thank you.
Councillor Watson, are you happy to change your proposal?
No, I'll stick with my proposal, thank you. I think as just as an aside, as regards this number of 40%, unfortunately, I'm in the position, the village I live in, we've just approved in the last probably two years a 100% affordable scheme. So we now have residents who are going, I don't want to live in an affordable house, I want to downsize, but I'm certainly not going to go into something where I don't own it 100%. So it's a tricky balance, and I think 30% is better than 25%. And yes, it's a negotiation point. You could go back and ask for another 2, another 3, but that means the whole scheme is coming back once again. We've already heard that if this had gone ahead when it was first proposed in 2019, it would have been done, completed and delivered. So no, I think we've my personal view is we should go with number quoted.
Fiona?
From a legal perspective, if there was a deviation from the December resolution, you'd have to explain why, otherwise the decision might be unsound. The only changes are the MPPF, the housing affordable, private land housing supply morphology, and that there isn't an off-site public open space contribution, it's all on-site.
Yeah. Well,
I think until David turns his off, no one else is going to go on.
on the other hand.
Let's share.
Oh, yeah,
I
that,
wasn't there. Yes, I was just going to say, well, in my opinion, that say a grant to 40% would be tantamount to a refusal, really, this time. So you'd have to say you're refusing it, not granting permission. Which obviously last time you did grant permission with the 30%. So as Fiona says, you'd have to show very good grounds as to what's changed now. And Fiona's already pointed out what her balance was, as how she weighed it up and explained about the local plan not being reviewed for the past 5 years, which is why the planning officer's view is that 30% is reasonable when she's weighed up all the other factors and the disadvantages of the scheme. So it's a balancing factor. However, if you feel that you don't agree with that balance, you should refuse the decision, but give very clear reasons why your position has changed from last time and what it is that you're going to give as a reasonable reason for refusal that we could, possibly defend at a later date.
Councillor Moorhouse.
Yes, I'm working, yeah. Okay, well, I was one of the members who voted for it in the last planning meeting and visited the site, and I accept the problems they've got, and I would hope that the conditions in there in Yorkshire Waters, as Karen indicated earlier, wasn't aware of the flooding, and like to think that will be all sorted out. I think we've got to remember exactly that we're in a different position as we were in 2021 to where we are. We've got a new government that insists that North Yorkshire Council supply, is it 2,000 houses a year? 4,000 a year, sorry, it was 4. And, we've got to look at the fact, if this was put on hold again, it'd probably go to appeal. And there's no one can say what the inspector would say, but it could be that it would fail. Objection, but I'm sorry, I'm going to put sport to Steve. I think that we've got to get on with it and do something. Yes, there is a need, and 3 years, 4 years on, nothing's happened. And I had a chat with one of the big trainers there, and he said, wait for it to happen. Albeit, listening to lots of there's many affordable housing, but it should get on with it. So I'm going to second Councillor Watson's proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Hugo.
Still not working. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Watson's right in we have already minded to approve this. But for me, sitting in that planning meeting on Tuesday, I mean, I actually voted against. I didn't want it to be 35. I voted against it. Yeah, for consistency, I've got to stick to my guns that we need to maintain this level, especially somewhere like Midland. It's a training centre, resource training centre. There's only got 5 of these in the country. That's five spaces there, possibly for stable staff. I think it's a big deal. On Councillor Moorhouse's point about appeal, we had a massive row about this on Tuesday when officers suggested that this a particular item would be one at appeal. That's for them. Today we look at it on its merits, and if there is an appeal, well, that's so be it. So I think we've been told really that we can't. I would like to second Councillor Thompson's proposal, but really we can't do that, can we? I think if we're going to go against it, it's going to be a refusal. So why not? I'll propose refusal.
I just want to stick my oar in it, if I might, at the moment. There's no suggestion yet have been made of a viability report. I think if we went with 40%, whatever the legal ramifications, you would find the applicant coming back with a viability assessment, which would show that it's not possible to produce 40%.
Can I come back on
Yeah,
that?
okay.
Where is it? Why not? Why is it not in the pack with it now? Why does he not provide that?
For the reasons that Fiona has given us.
Okay.
Councillor Foster.
My memory's not as good as to remember from December 24. Did Yorkshire Water make comment then?
No, we've consulted them at least twice and they haven't commented. We've recommended a pre-commencement condition for the foul drainage scheme to be agreed, and that to include a timetable. So if any of the ambient water system needed, sorry, I'm going back to my Norfolk days. If the water company needs to update any of their equipment, we can agree the timetable with them as part of the condition, so that there isn't any houses connecting to that system before it can accommodate the flows.
Will that take into consideration the runoff water? That seems to be the problem for the residents. Would it be looked at that when you discuss with them?
So surface water is another pre-commencement condition. They actually have to submit the details part of the reserve matters, so they'll actually be trying to they'll be capturing the surface water flows and releasing that at a controlled rate as well through a different pipework system.
Okay, I think that's really important that we've heard from the town council and we get that right, because there is obviously some problems there, especially with the flooding. So I'm a little bit more happier. I'm not ecstatic, but I'm a little bit more happier that is being looked at, because Yorkshire Water has not made comments. It really is poor, and if it's possible, can you get in touch with them and say that council has made comment that it's poor and they expect better? Thank you.
Councillor Sedgwick.
Thanks for that, Kevin, as well, for Yorkshire Water prompt. That's good. It's just a point what David said about the stable, the riders, the opportunity to get the affordable houses. Can I just assure you that that would not be a problem, because the riders, as such, it's a transient population that come and go riding the horses, and they are I'm going to say stable. Then they're housed by the trainers, the different trainers, and they tend to have shared accommodation in a variety of buildings, houses. And one of the complaints I've had over the years is when somebody builds new houses, like they did do on Park Lane, I think it's Park Lane, they were immediately snapped up by the trainers for accommodation for the riders. So it wouldn't come into it that the riders would be wanting an affordable house. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean they are already catered for. There are plans being looked at the moment for building suitable accommodation for them a bit higher up near the quay centre. That's a thought and a plan. But please rest assured that the affordable houses would be really for people who live and work in the area, like we want to stipulate, and hopefully for the families as well. Okay.
Councillor Foster.
After been given this great before and really not really wanting the housing on the Greenfield site, which I've said every time on the 3 applications. I've got to think here what's best for Midland and what they need. There is a housing issue there. And with great reservation, but I have to make a decision. I'm here to do that. I'm going to second Councillor Watson's proposal for acceptance because there's best. Has it been seconded? Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. My fault.
Yeah.
Right, any more speakers? The first completed proposal I've got from Councillor Watson, seconded by Councillor Morehouse, is for granting as per the recommendation. Those in favour, please show. Those against? Abstain?
One abstention.
So that's carried. Right, that concludes the business of the application. There are no matters of urgency. So I close the meeting. On the note that the next one will be on the 10th of April, venue to be confirmed.